Pinpoint asteroids in orbit, then hurl y'all thousands of miles an hour towards it.
So good old Gary Wybenga attempted to create a flat Earth model a while back. Let's see how accurate a prediction his model can make.
What we have here is a vertical line from the North Pole to Polaris on the left side. The bottom line is from the North Pole to the equator. I drew all the latitudes from 10 degrees to 80 degrees. They were all 1 centimeter apart, equaling 690 miles. So they're all equal distance of 69 miles per millimeter, or 690 miles per centimeter. I've drawn lines at the correct angles from each of those latitudes. The angle you would see Polaris from at those latitudes.
All right, Gary, let me go ahead and stop you right there. The problem with this model that you're trying to push here is that over here, along this line right here, you're missing a distance, okay? So before you claimed that Polaris was 4,000 miles above the flat Earth above the North Pole, you need to represent that distance over here, right? So if you have something at 10 degrees right here, along this line right here, this is supposedly 10 degrees, then we would know exactly how far this distance is right here. That's how trigonometry works, Gary. Like, we would know this distance. Like, you can't just make a graph and say, oh, these are the distances and the angles, and then not represent those distances over here. All these little dots right here represent a distance. We know how trigonometry works. It doesn't just stop working because the Earth is flat, or because you think somehow as things move away over a flat surface, they would decrease the same way they would on a curved surface. That's completely false, and this is what you don't understand, Gary.
So at 80 degrees latitude, I have a steep angle up to Polaris. So I would be looking sharply higher, right? And then we move out 690 miles more towards the equator. And then I would be looking at a 70-degree angle, which would be a little bit lower on that vertical line up from the North Pole to Polaris. Then we move out to 60, and it would appear at a 60-degree angle, which would be a little bit lower on that vertical line from the North Pole to Polaris, which is exactly what we would see with perspective. Now I go all the way to the equator, and I got a line from 1 degree, which you would see very, very low on the horizon, just like we see in this graph. The latitude lines work. They were simply perspective lines from Polaris to the ground, or to the observer. How the observer sees the angle from his latitude to Polaris.
I noticed that Gary's model is missing something. Along the bottom, he has values that represent angles to Polaris on the surface of Earth. Each angle also represents a distance from the North Pole. But what we know about distance and right angles through trigonometry is that we can figure out the height of an object on the opposite side when given the length of the adjacent and the angle between the adjacent and the hypotenuse. Now, if we assume the surface of the Earth is flat, and we know how flat earthers love that flat baseline, we can predict what angles to Polaris should be from any distance from the North Pole. The relationship between the behavior of objects at a fixed point above a curved surface versus a flat surface is something that Gary seems to not understand. A few months ago, I made a video where I demonstrated this nonlinear relationship between angles and distance using a flat hallway. In that demonstration, I concluded that angles from a fixed object above a flat surface would have an inconsistent rate of change over known distances, meaning the change in angles will be nonlinear. Whereas in reality, we do see a linear relationship between angles to Polaris and the distance between each latitude line. So as you can see here, when you put these angles on a curved surface, they kind of start to make sense. Well, each angle is an equal distance apart, and they're all separated by about 10 values. I mean, this is pretty straightforward. But of course, flat earthers, they kind of avoid this point, and they just think that over a flat surface, the same thing would happen. So what I've demonstrated here is that it doesn't happen. With the hallway demonstration and with this demonstration, they're not consistent at all. All the light from Polaris comes in parallel because it's very far away, and between each of these, that would be 690 miles between each of them in equal distance, and they're all separated by 10 degrees. And this is what you call a linear function. Equal distances and an equal change in angle. Pretty simple. A linear relationship is one where increasing or decreasing one variable a certain amount will cause a corresponding increase or decrease of a certain amount in the other variable too. In other words, if you double one variable, the other will double as well. Now this is consistent with a curved surface. So eventually, Gary was nice enough to tell me that he believes Polaris is around 4,000 miles above the North Pole, which is what his model was missing initially. Not sure where he got this number from, but with this, we can test whether or not his model matches reality. Now with Polaris being 4,000 miles above the North Pole, according to Gary, that tells me that at 4,000 miles away from the North Pole, Polaris should be 45 degrees above the horizon. Now since I live in Hawaii, I'm about 4,747 miles from the North Pole. So according to Gary's model and trigonometry, Polaris should be 40 degrees above the horizon. Unfortunately for you, Gary, it's not. It's actually 21 degrees, which matches my latitude perfectly. I'm not sure if you can see it, but Polaris is right about there. And if I try and put my crosshairs over it, I don't know if you can see it. Let me see. It's right in this corner right here. Barely see it, but if I go up towards it, put my crosshairs on it, it's right at about 21, 22 degrees. So that pretty much matches my latitude. So once again, Gary, you are wrong again. Right about there. 21 degrees. I guess Gary somehow thinks that trigonometry stops working on his angularly compressed flat Earth. Anyway, once again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you like this video, and check out the rest of my videos if you're interested. And as always, peace.
Pinpoint asteroids in orbit, then hurl y'all thousands of miles an hour towards it.